So hi, I'm Daniel, or well, Dee-Kej because there's too many Daniels. I'm a game designer and programmer at SVRVIVE Studios, and I'm here to do basically a small postmortem on our first game, Survive the Deus Helix. That does not work. There we go. And so Survive the Deus Helix. It was released back in November last year, and we were anything between 2 and 12 developers on it, depending on when you look at it. It took about 6 months of development time from the prototype stage to release, as you can see at the talk. And technically we used Unity 5.3 for the mainstay of it. And there was really a mixed bag of developer skill involved. I personally was the only one who did any major VR things before this project. Most weren't even like most hadn't even been making a game before. There are a lot of people from marketing, a lot of people from investment side, and from other business. Some straight out of university and making a prototype, and so there was kind of a hectic 6 months. And so I'm going to talk a bit about what went right and what went not so right. So these 5 wonderful people are the 5 founders. You can see I'm missing here because I actually joined back in August. So especially these 2 guys. Hampus, our artist and co-founder, and Pontus, our programmer and co-founder, they were basically the 2 people responsible for making the prototype, making sure that the company actually got afloat and got investment, and were the ones mainly responsible for getting the demo out on Steam late July, if I remember correctly. We had our first demo sessions, or well, they, in June 2016, which is also where I first came involved with the project. They were basically asking me like, hey, okay, they were my friends, I would do VR, and like, hey, come try the VR, and do you want a job doing this VR thing? So I said yes, and in August we were this many people instead, 12 people, including 1 intern, and yeah, I'm there in the back. And yeah, so what we had then back in August was basically game jam code. They're skilled developers now, but they were straight out of university, hadn't made any major product releases yet. There was 1 mission out of the 5 that we eventually ended up having. About 30 to 60 minutes gameplay, depending on how fast you complete it. And what we wanted was good structured code, like refactor everything, make about 10 missions, 7 hours of gameplay. It was going to be fantastic. The problem is we had really little time to do that in. Granted, we were more people now, not just 2 main developers, but actually 12. But yeah, it was kind of others people's reaction, and this was basically our reaction. How the hell should we do this? So we did some math, seeing like, okay, what's realistic here? 2 developers, 1.5 months, produced in like 1 mission. Now we had 3 coders, 4 artists, plus additional resources. So 1 coder fixes the like overarching stuff, hub, refactoring code and stuff. 1 coder plus 2 artists form teams. They make a couple missions. So that gives about 4 missions in 3 months, so a total of 5, including the prototype one. So links for Q and testing. 5 missions. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. And what happened? Well, we did this. It was released. It's a game. Yay! Came 5 mission totals and coincidentally about 5 hours of gameplay. At the time, one of the longest games on Steam. Still at around 90% positive reviews, and it's going pretty well. It could be better, but it's going well. And so, what went right and what went wrong? This was hectic 6 months, or well, mostly 3.5. So we had a plan, and we did a math, and we stuck to it, and well, the game got released. Just it got released a bit later than we planned, but we also got the amount of missions we planned, so full plan, but missions kind of needed more polish. We basically spent a couple of weeks, month, bug fixing and doing all sort of crazy fixes. I did not get much sleep that time. We did rebuild the level 3 times. We somehow had time for that. And that showed in the final products. It went from basically what we have on the left and to what we have on the right, and gameplay improved massively, and nowadays this is basically the favorite level of many of our players. And the trouble is, though, we should have done that with more of them. The funny thing, the main level I was in charge of as a coder was the second one, and that's probably the most hated one. Probably should have redone it a bit more, but I was busy with other things. We also had a sound designer, which is something that not a lot of teams do these days, at least on our size. But that was great, except we didn't really invest that much dev time into sound. He made awesome sounds and we put it in, but we neglected the fact that, like, okay, we need spatial audio, we need something to make the players more immersed into the experience. How do I actually make this full immersive VR experience as good as possible? And, well, we kind of fail in that regard. We also had flashlights to help you see, because some people were saying, like, oh, it's a bit dark, and flashlights added like a bit of atmosphere and everything, so it's all good. But it was so dark that players needed flashlights, which is also a thing we often see at events such as this. People come by, want to see what the game's about, and they can't see anything on the screen because it's too goddamn dark. It is brighter in the VIVE, which we're doing the game for, but still. So yeah, flashlights. We also released when we felt the game was done. So we were like, okay, we have defined missions. We have the amount of gameplay we wanted. It's running okay in tests. We should have done more tests. We actually ended up right around release. We hired a QA tester to the company just to be able to make sure that for future projects we do the proper testing and actually get it out to an audience that actually doesn't have to bug test it for us in the future. So a bit of a thing also, because a lot of us are new to this. There are a lot of great former AAA developers jumping into VR in this as well, but a lot of us are new, so I'll just bring up some financial stuff. No real numbers, because my boss would kill me, and I'm not 100% sure I'm allowed to, but some round figures. So, assuming we had our 6 months demo time, we would have had with around 2.5k euros per person per month, which is like low junior salaries in Stockholm, where we're from. We have now about 15 people per company. That's person per month, but yeah, as you can read yourselves, assuming that we have about 200,000 VIVEs in the wild, which is the public estimates that we have to go for it, then yeah, if everyone buys the game, great. We're making much progress, having a bunch of revenue, except that's if you cover all the costs and if you actually have everyone doing it. But hey, still, if you get 10% of the customers, then you have 300k. That's more than production cost, except that's just the wages. And then you have rent, equipment, and everything else, taxes. Not to mention additional bug fixing time and everything. So making VR games for just one platform, that's not really recommended right now. I mean, we did a good game, and it's doing well, but it's not enough to recuperate anything for a company our size. I mean, for a one-man team, you're doing great. But for our size, well, our main lesson learned was we need to go multi-platform in the future. The space is so small these days that even with the Vive and Oculus, that's about 500,000 headsets. Adding PSVR, that's another 1 million. Then we're talking. Then we can actually do something with it. But until then, we really need to actually, well, or you can make a game everyone wants to buy, but yeah, that's a problem. And I realized I printed this very quickly. Still 10 minutes remaining. Awesome. So bonus round. Some unit tips, because hey, we're Unity developers. We're here with Unity in their booth as well. So there's this thing with unit count in Unity that I don't have any pictures of this, but for any Unity developer that's somewhat familiar with the engine, we have game objects. You can load them, activate them, deactivate them, and in a VR game that causes frame hitches, which is very, very bad. And we were desperate to see, we want to make as big a levels as possible, like most of us do. And we had this huge problem of having these huge levels with really beautiful geometry, and we just couldn't load it all in the same time. And we were looking at, okay, asymmetric loading, how can we do this in the right way? I mean, activating, deactivating objects would be kind of okay. Occlusion culling just didn't work properly enough for us. And so during a game jam a year ago or so, I found this thing that if you move stuff like 10,000 units away outside the camera frustum, it actually doesn't cause any frame stutters. So basically, you take chunks of the level and you just move them, and it works. I don't know why, but use that. And don't just deactivate objects, and your players will be happy, you will be happy, everyone will be happy. And also a very specific thing, we now Unity thankfully have done the additive light mapping solution with 5.6, but back in 5.3 we didn't have that, and we had lighting load times of like hours a day, just like, okay, now I need to build lighting, and now you got to do something else for a couple of hours, and that's just in a 6-month development cycle, you can't do that. So finally we figured out the one thing that actually helped us a lot was there's a semi-hidden window in the scene window where you can see light map scale. I've been using Unity for, 4 years now. I discovered that in October. And you can go into each object and set the object's light map scale. That took our rendering, light mapping building times from hours to literally minutes. So use that if you're not, if you're having trouble with light maps. Even today, that would still be beneficial. I wish I'd prepared a picture of that, but so I didn't. And with that, actually, I'm done. So questions, because there's a lot of things we can cover with Unity stuff, but I basically thought, hey, let's let you guys ask questions instead about VR game and the SVRVIVE skills. Before that, though, we are in the Unity booth here. Come and play the game. We're on sale as well. Marketing. And yeah, thank you for coming here. But yeah, I guess applause later. I know. I'm not good at this thing.
Thanks for the talk. If you'd have made this game this year as opposed to last year, would you have had a, would there have been a advantage of you doing it last year as opposed to now?
Like tech-wise, or what?
In terms of the success of the game, like do you think there's a kind of a ticking time bomb before people can start to work in VR, or do you think it's all right to take your time and before jumping in?
So personally, of course, I would have waited, but the reasoning behind our okay, we need to release in November was we saw the VR train moving along this platform, kind of leaving it, and we were like, okay, we need to get on this. We secured investments in the beginning of December last year. We have a finite amount of money to be able to sustain 15 people, and we were like, okay, we need to get this out, and if we don't get it out before, I can't remember what it was, before the major releases that were back in November, and back in December as well, the other AAA games, we were like, okay, we need to release it now, otherwise we need to wait until February to release something and have a decent market for it. So what I would have done, nothing now tech-wise would have made me want to wait. Release earlier to have a sort of bigger splash, because otherwise we're just going to be one of the many companies. And right now we have gained some success just because we were early. It helps to have a good game, of course, but it doesn't hurt to be among the few.
Cool, thanks.
No more questions. Then I'm done. Oh, there.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier that developing for one platform isn't a good plan right now. How did you decide, kind of when you were making the game, initially which platform to go for, and sort of?
I maybe should have mentioned that. Yes. So basically, the founders decided that okay, we want to make. And we're still having that mindset. We want to make games that we ourselves want to play. And back then, VIVE was the only platform who supported proper room scale. So we were like, okay, we need to do this for the VIVE. And then in doing that, we did it for Steam VR. And now we're at a point where we have this massive code base using a bunch of Steam VR stuff. And now when we want to take it to another platform, we have to remove that SteamVR stuff. That's integral. And so that was basically the reasoning. We wanted to have this room scale sort of setup, and wanted to do a game that we ourselves want to play. So that's why we did it for that platform. Then no disregard to the other platforms. We're doing things for that now, for them. The next game that I unfortunately can't talk about right now because we're not quite ready to reveal gameplay and everything, but we're doing the next game for VIVE and Rift and PSVR, just to actually get it out on more platforms.
I've just got one more question. Sort of, how has it been developing across those different platforms? Has it sort of been an easy process or a difficult process, kind of developing for all three? If you could talk about that.
I'm trying to figure out how to say it. It's been interesting. There are additional challenges getting the on the most basic level, getting interactivity to work across different types of input. Even though we have you have motion controllers across all three, they're responding in different ways, different kind of inputs. Like the PSVR doesn't have sticks, analog sticks, while the other two have. You can simulate on the VIVE, but yeah, so we need to have that in mind and see, okay, how can we best fit the game to each platform, while still not sacrificing anything that, okay, so then PSVR doesn't have a thing that the other two have. We can't do that. because we don't want to make a lesser game just because we want to be on another platform.
Okay. I think that's probably it.
One more?
Yeah, a slightly technical question. How do you develop for all three platforms in Unity if you can't use SteamVR?
Good question. No, but there are things that are, like the main thing that we used in with SteamVR plugin back then, now it's more integrated, that was the loading system, which made sure that we didn't have any frame hitches, which is why I went for that early on. But having to remove that from all the loadings, which is in all our scenes and everything, that was too much work. We could have done multi-platform later on as well, but we didn't. And we also designed the interaction straight up for room scale, and they didn't have it. There wasn't anything like purely technical with the engine that doesn't allow us to do it. Yeah. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.